the young people, not the older people who use phones, because they all knew what phones were for. They were for talking into each other. They weren't for writing things on. Young people who hadn't been brought up with the rules for what phones were used for discovered that this was a cheap way of communicating. They could do it, maybe it was a secret way of communicating to some extent as well. So texting just took off and was never expected. On the iPhone, or the iPhone when it first came out, when Apple put apps on the iPhone, all these little things that you get on the iPhone, they never thought that the apps were going to become that important. They saw the iPhone as a phone, combining a camera, combining a music player, and the apps would just give it a few other things that it could do. And within a very short period of time, I can't remember how many apps, I think 200,000 or something, apps are available on the iTunes website. So what happens is that we use social networking and we say, it can help us do this, which is what we always wanted to do, it can help us do this, and it helps us do it a bit better. And then we discover we're doing something else entirely different. And in some cases that entirely different thing is something that we really welcome. And in other cases we think, actually we don't want that happening. So it is, you know, it's impossible for us to predict. If Apple couldn't work out what apps were going to lead to, well, the people that were inventing mobile phones and put texting on didn't realise what it meant, which they didn't, and yet they were the cleverest people doing it, then we're not going to be able to predict exactly what's going on. Do you want to say something?
Sir, I wanted to add here that when we talk about technology sustaining the education as we used to perceive it, we've discussed that as long as the technology is helping to sustain the teacher-centered education.
The teacher's role?
Teacher's role, the teacher-centered education, the teacher-centered class. It is helping to sustain the education at the current system. As long as the center of the attention diverts from the teacher to the student, that is, he is empowered to dwell on his own. For example, networking, he can, if he is chatting to you, he can chat to 1,000 more people. You're giving him a leverage.
A little bit. I mean, I agree with you mainly, because I mean, our mode of working in education is teacher, in class, and all of them in a school, in an institution for so many hours a day, etc. But teachers have always wanted to try and encourage the pupils to contribute and to talk to each other. So it's not entirely, it isn't entirely, you know, that schools are instructional from the teacher to the class. After all, what I'm doing now is what a lot of teachers do. They have a discussion with the members of the class. The question is there something else going to happen, which is what you're alluding to, I think, that we're going to end up doing something completely different. Go on anyway, because this table's still giving the...
Blogs.
Blogs for what? Sustaining or...?
Yes, for sustaining it. I'm still on the sustaining part.
How are blogs
Blogs because the introvert children,
yes,
the introverts in the classroom who are hesitant of speaking or sharing their ideas, on a class blog, they can even comment on the activity that is conducted.
So it just makes it more efficient.
Yes.
And
so the less talkative ones also get to present their opinions.
So we don't all focus on one table. Can I stop there and take another table now? We're sustaining at the moment.
I want to talk about the disruptive part.
Well, let's just... Okay, I'll come to you for disruptive first.
Sustaining. There are 4 or 5 different areas where I have worked, you know, for sustaining part. At one time our schools were closed because of, when we worked on BSU, a project where students were unable to attend schools.
Yeah.
So we at Beaconhouse placed lessons for them to, for continuing education. So that was one area that we worked into.
I remember that, because it's only, we're talking about a year ago, aren't we?
Last year in November.
Yeah. Because I was actually due to come over roughly about that time, and then because of all the problems, I was advised not by Beaconhouse, but by people in the UK, that I shouldn't travel to Pakistan.
Yes.
But I remember having the discussion with people here about that. So lessons online.
Online.
Yeah. Definitely keeping the school going, yeah?
Yeah.
Something else? Or?
Yes. Well, at one time we introduced video studies in A-level.
Right.
And our teachers had a lot of problems understanding the curriculum and the examination system too. So we arranged for video conferencing with the people in UK, examiners and others, and that helped our teachers. We had them together, and that was very helpful.
And in fact, Tavinda, you were saying that you've just been piloting video conferencing as well within Beaconhouse.
Yes, we did that with the A-level. We tried a series of 3 lessons for teaching A-level physics. Video was stationed in one place.
Third area in which I worked was we had a A-level class which was too large, 70 students.
Right.
And we had just one teacher. So what we did was we wrote lessons, placed on the laptop, used media projector, and this way we projected them and told the students not to write.
So you videoed the lessons. You videoed the lessons and then played them, which is what happens on, if you go to iTunes U. Do any of you go to iTunes U?
iTunes?
In iTunes, there's a section called iTunes U, and the U stands for university. And it has got mainly American universities, some British, 1 or 2 others, but principally American universities. They will just put their lectures up online, or if they have a famous speaker comes, they're really good. You go along there and you can watch a lecture, and it's a really useful resource.
It saves time, and at the same time, you have more of interaction with the student.
And also if the student misses the lesson, they're off ill for a week, then they can just go and look at those lessons.
Richard, can I make a point here? All of us are talking about disruptive behavior and about chatting through mobile phones and using internet.
Yes.
Why are we thinking of mobile phones and internet only? Why don't we think of the peripherals that we can use?
The what?
The peripherals. The gadgets, the peripherals with the computer that we use, like this video camera, and there's a digital microscope. Several other educational tools are there that we can use, and we can talk about it.
Absolutely, and that's what that is one of the points, isn't it? That we have this concern. It's exactly the same in the UK. You don't want children in class with mobile phones because it's a real nuisance. They're texting to each other during the lesson. They're mucking around, taking photographs of the class. There was a video up of Beaconhouse schools. Actually, did you see it on YouTube? It was a particular teacher who was having problems, and these are boys, must have been about 15 years old, 16, videoed the teacher having problems with the class and put it up on YouTube. I don't think it's there now. But they will do that. I mean, every teacher has some problems. You could go in my view, you could go and video any teacher's lessons at particular points, and it can look pretty bad. The teacher telling the child off and other kids be over here mucking about. And of course, the last thing you want to happen, so you ban mobile phones. But, on the iPhone, I hold an iPhone up because that's what I've got, but I mean, lots of other phones are the same. You've got a good camera that you can also take good videos on. You've also got a very good voice recorder that you can use. You can surf the web on it if you've got a wireless network. And even if you haven't, if you've got 3G, you can surf the web. But certainly the camera at a very simple level is a very useful thing. Children they draw something or make something, they can take a picture and keep it.
Blog and social network, it is all coming into the disruptive heading, not in the sustaining heading.
You think it should be in the disrupting side?
Yes, because it's changing the scenario of the lesson. It's not the whole system. I believe that it should come in the destructive one, not the sustaining.
You have to explain how is the student, so we're talking about the student producing a blog, right?
Yes,
As part of their education, they're asked to produce a blog. Tell me, how is that? I'm not suggesting you're wrong. I'm just asking you to explain to us all, how is it disruptive?
Disruptive in a sense.
He can speak for you. All right. It's just
disruptive because it was a group that we decided that in the group discussion that disruptive in a sense when we talk about conventional way of education.
Disrupting that.
It's disrupting that conventional way of education. It is improving it.
But in Beaconhouse, are we going for the conventional way of study?
I am changing.
We are changing.
What I am saying is that
disruptive.
Beaconhouse are pioneers in disruption. And I mean it in a good way. I mean it in a good
disruption, not in a negative way.
yeah, it's not.
You are taking disruption in a negative.
It is generally used in a
We are taking disruption
We're
in a
not
very
using it.
positive way.
It can be negative. We're trying to
But
use
we
it
are
in a
talking it in
neutral
a very
sense.
positive way.
Disruptive means forcing change in the mode of working.
BSU will come under the disruptive because we are changing the traditional way of teaching. We are teaching them, but different methodology and different techniques.
Okay. No, I think that's fine. I'll put it on both sides because generally speaking, technologies will start sustaining the present system, and then you very quickly realize there are capabilities that the technology enables that are actually challenging what you now do. And it's not necessarily that you don't want to do what it allows you to do, it's just that it's different to what you've done before. Now, I promised you that you'd be the first one really to come up with the disruptive things.
I have absolutely nothing against the technology.
No, I'll come back to sustaining as well. I just want a few disruptive and then we'll go around. Okay, don't worry. See, if we could have done it all online, we could have all produced our own and put them up there and had a good argy-bargy as well.
See, I have nothing against the use of technology. I am perfectly alright with the use of technology within the education system, within the classroom, and I do that myself as well. For example, if I am an English language teacher, so I use the CD players for the listening to enhance the listening skills of my students within the classroom, and that really helps a lot because most of the time we don't get exposed a lot to the good standard of English language in our daily in Pakistan generally. So it's a positive thing to an extent only. But if we come down to an individual level, sometimes I feel that probably due to the vast resources and the vast amount of knowledge and information that is present, specifically on the internet, students, they read so many things that their imagination